The important thing is that we strive to get our performances right. It's just really quite simple in my own mind about that.
Nigel, you've had no midweek game. How are the preparations for Sheffield Wednesday?
Yeah, they've been okay. I mean, it's after last week's game, I think there's a relatively positive feel. But the important thing is that we strive to get our performances right. It's just really quite simple in my own mind about that. We've been inconsistent this season. We've struggled with availability of players, which doesn't help, but just one of those things. Just get on with it, and I want us to play with an enthusiasm and desire, and that's really what I'm looking for. If you do that, you've got a good chance of bringing your best game to the pitch, and that's how I think about it. It's we have games which people will think they're very winnable for us, but I also know that all these games that we have to play between now and the end of the season are very much dependent on how we go about it ourselves. That's really the key factor.
Back to Hillsborough, it's a place you know very well. Is this a game you look forward to, or are you not that sentimental?
No, I don't get sentimental about returning in a professional sense, just because I've got a job to do here. Having said that, Sheffield Wednesday has been a big part of my life and continues to be a big part of my family's life, because my kids are both Wednesday fans. So, I had 7 years there, so it's quite a big chunk of my playing career. But I always go back there with my professional hat on, and that's just the way it is, I'm afraid.
We talked last week about mindset and where we are in the table, and you made it very clear there's everything to play for with every game. When you go into a side who are actually really scrapping for their lives, what kind of dynamic does that set up for the match?
Well, as we found against Coventry, we came unstuck on that day just because we just weren't driven enough on the day, and it has to be a collective effort. And I would expect. I mean, I know Darren really well from my days at West Brom. He was a player there at the time, and he's a really good guy, but he's a very determined man as well. So I don't expect this to be anything other than a tough game. So they've got some good players. They've had a tough year, obviously, with having a points deduction, which has really made it difficult for them. And on top of that, they've had changes in the manager's position. So all those things together have compiled, I think, some of the disappointments and made it psychologically quite a difficult season for them. But I fully expect a Darren Moore side to be a very tough game, a tough team to play against. And we have to, as I say, we have to go about this game in the correct manner for us, because we've got our own motivations to win the game.
You've obviously been out on the grass for a fair few days this week, including Jada Silva. Is he getting closer to getting considered for selection?
Well, he's a player who, he's dealt with quite a difficult injury, but it's really good to see him back training. He enjoys his football. He's got he's a gifted player as well. He's got a really a wand of a left foot. So it's good to see him out there. It's really important between now and the end of the season that I think he finishes this campaign, if you like, with a knowledge that when pre-season starts, he's up and running. And I think that's the most important thing. So hopefully we'll get him some sort of a game, whether that be with the 23s to start with. But as soon as he's feeling comfortable with his fitness, and of course you've got, as a player, you need to get the exposure right in terms of match practice, if you like. So hopefully he'll be in the fray, if you like, between now and the end of the season. But I certainly don't want to push it just for the sake of it. I think he's a well respected and highly thought of player here, and I think what's important now is that his recovery is at the right pace so that he's available for next season.
We've seen Chris Martin and Andy Vyman in the background doing a lot of the hard work with Andrew Proctor in terms of fitness, etc. It's nice to see those guys coming back, albeit not for this season, but really kind of putting the work in to get fit for pre-season. Yeah,
very much so. And I think both of those lads in particular are really good examples of how pros need to approach their own recovery from injuries. So it's never easy to deal with that, but based on the psychological aspects of being out for such a long time. But I think they have certainly helped each other, but their attitude to really being as good as they can be and recovering as quickly, but also to give themselves the best chance of not just recovering fully, but being in good physical shape for the new campaign, I think is something that they should take a lot of credit for. They've been excellent. I would say that for the staff as well, they're pretty low maintenance because they have a high level of motivation on a personal level, and that's something that moving forward will be very important for us.
Great examples, as you say, especially to young players, and we've got our young players under 18s down the road on Saturday afternoon in the last 16 of the FA Youth Cup at Sheffield United. What message would you give to these young players if you were giving the team talk for Saturday when they go out there?
I always look at, in terms of dealing with individuals, it's if players can have a self-awareness about what gifts they have, what strengths they have, and try and maximise what they have. I think for me that is the most important piece of information or advice, if you want to call it advice, that I could give anybody, and that is to it's everybody I think would have heroes or people that they role models that they look up to, but essentially as an individual player, it's about trying to maximise what you have. And so it goes without saying that some players have more ability than others, but that doesn't necessarily equate to how successful a career a player has. There have been plenty of players with an awful lot of ability who've never really fulfilled their potential, if you like, and some players who the opposite, have a bit less ability but have fantastic careers just because they have the added personal motivation and drive and self-awareness. Self-awareness is huge in sport.
Well, we wish them all the best on Saturday. Off the field, Nigel, obviously it's been a significant week. Mark Ashton has announced he's stepping down at the end of May. What are your thoughts on that, and how will that, if at all, affect your day-to-day until then?
Well, we've talked about it, and we're both very professional people, and we both agree that it shouldn't and it won't actually affect how we do our jobs. It's really. I think for me, Mark. I've been aware that Mark's had a little bit of criticism, or maybe an understatement, but he's delivered an awful lot in his tenure here, and I think people underestimate that. One of the things that when you're in a position of authority and you're a decision maker, I think you have to accept that you're not going to be universally popular. I know that myself. I've had those. I have those moments, but of course, making decisions is somebody's got to do it. Somebody has to make tough calls, and you don't always get the response that you want. But I think what is important is that the legacy that he leaves here is actually a very positive one. The club we're sitting in this place, and he's had a huge driving impact on delivering this project itself. So on a personal level, he's been nothing but a huge support to me. So I'm disappointed in some ways, but I also know that it's probably time for him to have a new challenge himself, and I certainly wish him the very best, because I think he's had a big impact on this football club, and I just wish him certainly my best wishes. I'll buy him a bonsai.